My final guest tonight is simply a living legend with a career spanning 7 decades. As he celebrates his 80th birthday, he's still working. Still the best in the business, the godfather of cool. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Bennett.
Thank you very much.
Michael was talking there about time shooting by, as you get older. I should think this year for you has gone by like a flash, hasn't it?
It has, it has. It's very unusual. 80 years old, and since January, I've had almost on a daily basis someone giving me a birthday cake. It's wonderful. I mean, I have so much happening.
And marvelous too. I mean, you must also be very impressed by the amount of love that's come across, by the amount of praise, and I mean, it's wonderful to be in that situation. You're the last one left, aren't you, now?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. And so many magnificent artists that were 10 years my elder, like Nat Cole and the great Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald, all these beautiful, wonderful, creative, popular singers.
Who were your heroes, of course.
They were mine, yes.
Yeah. And now you're a hero to a new generation.
I know. It feels funny. I feel like Rip Van Winkle.
But you said that, actually, I mean, Rip Van Winkle, because you're, on this new album that you've done, which is Duets, you've got an assembly of modern singing talent, and they've all come to you, and you've sat them down and you've recorded the way that you wanted to record too, haven't you?
The way I always record, yes. The new method is, it takes about 25 to 30 weeks to make one record, you know, and I've always been used to do it in 3 or 4 takes to keep the spontaneity of a recording, so it feels like a live performance. And so they were pretty interested in that technique. In fact, they ended up liking doing it.
They did. Yeah, because there's a great range of artists and styles. I mean, Barbra Streisand, Stevie Wonder, Bono, Sting, Paul McCartney.
I know.
I could go on forever. I mean, it's extraordinary.
Really, that's extraordinary.
They're all on this album, and there's some beautiful stuff on it too. I mean, my favourite, if I may say so, is I think is K.D. Lang. You know, I mean, because
thank you.
I think she's got such a fabulous voice, and it's just the way that you make music, just the two of you in the studio with a trumpeter, and you just sing. I mean, it's marvelous.
It's a matter of singing with her, which is wonderful, because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Right. Now, you talked there about the way that you make music, and the way that, you know, a lot of these rock stars particularly would have to adapt their way. But there was one, wasn't it, Elton, who took to it like a duck to water, Elton John.
He walked in and very, very prepared, and he sat down at the piano and played the song we were doing, and he said, let's do it, and he did it in 1 take. It was very good.
Okay, now you've done also too with this album, while making this album, you got Rob Marshall, the guy who shot Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
And he made a television special, which is spectacular, to say the least. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And we're going to feature a bit of it now, because it's going on television here, I think. It's in America in November. Television here about the same time. It's a wonderful concept, actually. And this is Elton John and you set in a kind of very camp. So now I'll bet you, yeah, exactly. I'll bet you, when you started your career 70 years ago, you never thought you'd end up with Elton John and feathers, right? Have a look at this.
Thank you.
Is that camp or what?
Oh, really?
Like a row of tents, as they say.
Absolutely. but that's Sahara there, of course. I mean, what the special does, it looks at your career.
Yes.
And that, of course, was Las Vegas.
In Las Vegas.
Which played a huge part in your career, didn't it?
Right.
Sahara in those days, on Vegas in those days, and nowadays it's much different than it was in those days.
Oh, completely different.
Tell us how.
I love the pioneering days of any company or any creative thing that starts, that becomes successful. It was magnificent in the early days. It's not nostalgia. I mean, you had Ella Fitzgerald and Nelson Riddle in the lounge of the Flamingo Hotel. And then Frank Sinatra, you know, at the Sands with the Rat Pack and all that. And then Louis Prima at the Sahara. And it was unbelievable. And everybody stayed up, all the young performers and the wonderful artists. And it started right at the top. I mean, you had Noel Coward and Marlene Dietrich. That's how the level was that high. And when I started as a popular singer with a recording, they didn't want to have a recording artist in Las Vegas. They said that's not classy enough and all that, you know. And it's changed. Now it's all reviews and
yes.
and it's all corporations run it. And
was that where you first became aware of Sinatra, or he became aware of you there?
no, it happened quite earlier than that. It was when I first started. I was very nervous, and I obtained, Perry Como gave me the summer replacement of his show on television, and they left me with the summer replacement. The network gave me a bare stage with a small band, you know, and I was frightened. So I never met Sinatra, but I was a big fan of his, and I took a chance. I went to the Paramount Theater with, he was playing with Tommy Dorsey, a reunion with Tommy Dorsey. And I asked if I could come up and see him. And I had a couple of million selling records. I had just started, you know, but so he knew who I was. And he said, "What is it, son?" And I said, "Well, I'm very nervous. I don't know how to, I don't know if I could really perform properly because I'm too nervous." And he said, "Don't worry about that." He was so wonderful to me, you know. He said, "The audience will sense if you're nervous, they're going to support you and they'll help you out." It really relaxed me for the rest of my life. I analyzed that if they're nice enough to come in and get a nanny for their children and save up to come in and come right down close so that they could see me, they're really friends. They're not an enemy. Yeah. And he really taught me. And he also said, "Don't ever do a cheap song. Do all quality songs." And I took that advice, and it's worked.
It has worked. I mean, this business where people have to reinvent themselves to last the course. I mean, you've done that without reinventing yourself for all the time that you've sung. I was
listening to Michael, and it's very, very similar, you know, in a way. Just he's really himself from when he first started to now. Precisely. And you don't have to really follow fashion, you know. No. You can just be yourself, and if you do it well, the public is, they're my judge. They have taught me. They're my teachers. They tell me what to do, and if it goes over well, they tell me that they like it. If it's not, it's just moderate applause, and you learn from just being in front of people just exactly what to do and what to leave out and what to put in.
It's interesting, isn't it, when I talk to you and I say you're the last of that great period of American music. I mean, that included the composers as well. I mean, you think of the Berlins, the Rodgers and Hart, and the Cole Porters, and all that, and then all the great interpreters of that song, and you were part of that golden period. I mean, you must think about in your life that you're lucky to be born in that period, in a sense.
I was. I love it. I mean, that's the Renaissance in the United States, just very similar to in the art world to the Impressionist painters in France, you know, and the Monet and Van Gogh and all of those. Well, this was Cole Porter and George and Ira Gershwin, Jerome Kern. Sure. Just magnificent. A Renaissance period that will never be repeated, actually, I don't think. Yeah.
Now, what about the business of learning your craft you mentioned there? And I know that your great influence when you were growing up was jazz. I mean, you used to go hot to jazz. And you became very interested in black culture at a time when it perhaps wasn't fashionable to be part of that black culture. What I'm getting at is the part that you played, because another part of your life in the civil rights movement, because I went to your 80th birthday party in New York, and you put me next to one of my great heroes, Harry Belafonte.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, an extraordinary man. And he said to me, when he said to the audience, he said, you know, you marched to Selma, he said, at a time with Martin Luther King, when it wasn't fashionable to march in those things at all, and it was dangerous, he said. You got killed for doing that. And you did it. You went along there with Billy Eckstine. You were a great friend of Martin Luther King's as well. Yes.
Yeah, well, Harry Belafonte introduced me to Martin Luther King. And very funny when you told me about the star in Hollywood, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was thrilled. Just last week, one of the events that came about, I just found out, they said, my secretary said, "Could you lend me your shoes?" I said, "What for?" He said, "Well, in Atlanta, they're making a beautiful statue of Martin Luther King, and the people that have marched with him, they're taking my shoes and putting them in cement."
Right.
So
really? Jesus, that's fantastic.
It is, yeah.
But tell us, I mean, I didn't realise, and Harry told me that in that march, that apart from all the hideous events that you saw, that the woman who drove you to the airport, you and Billy Eckstein, was murdered on the way back.
That's right. Yeah, it was unbelievable. It's so ignorant, you know, and you know, I'm so insistent right now in my personal life to try and promote education, you know, as much as possible as an entertainer. That's my social statement. Just let's educate everybody and bring everybody up and give them a good education. So it eliminates the ignorance, you know. And I mean, we're all here. Everybody's here on this planet. So we should respect one another.
You've got this school, this Frank Sinatra School of Performing Arts. Why do you call it the Frank Sinatra School? Why not the Tony Bennett School?
Well, he was my master. And really, no, that's true. You know, it's just like Louis Armstrong, Vic Spiderbeck was his master. And it's the right thing to be properly involved, to get along with your fellow entertainers and show people. And he was magnificent to me. He changed my career by calling me his favorite singer. And his whole audience came over to see what they were what he was talking about.
Yes.
And it filled up. I've been sold out for the last 45 years all over the world.